This is the SIG Release Meetings for May 8th, 2023. Let's get started. So all the agenda items are yours, Rado. Go ahead.
All right, cool.
So, Stephen, do you mind sharing the screen?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, once
Rado can do it too, because most of
Yeah,
the
I
stuff
can.
is,
Yeah, I
go
can.
ahead. Go ahead.
I can
because you
share
can
it.
browse it better instead of having me like driving in the back.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see. Is this visible?
Yes. Yeah, once this is done, probably we will go to the overall status later, Rado. Probably you can start with the rest of the things.
Okay, let me just try maybe make it bigger for the recording.
I don't actually see the, so everyone else see it. I don't actually see the share. I see that they're sharing your window, but then I don't see the file coming up.
No, I can see it, Stephen.
Oh, you can? Then maybe it's
I
just
can
my
see it.
problem
Yeah.
then. Okay. Great.
Anybody else can confirm? It's one yes, one no at this point of time. Just want to make sure it's not on the phone.
Yeah, I can see it too.
Okay, cool.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Stephen, something on your side. Yeah.
Just me. Okay. Go ahead.
All right, cool. So for the testbed preparation, the framework to spin it up and tear it down is ready. It's been merged. Victor already made a few improvements to it. And whatever is the next course of action taken for this test, we're ready in the sense that we have, so to speak, a framework to run it and to have the whole pipeline. So triggering with pull request to have some sort of a log, what and when what has been done, and yeah, so that's done. The GTP kernel module installation for the machine, I've also pushed it maybe an hour ago or something. It's not really tied to whatever the solution for this test will be. So it's just part of some pre-configuration script. For code checking and scanning the Go tests image.
So sorry to interrupt you. On the GTP stuff, so basically any test VM that we spin up, that will have this kernel module installed. Is that the right understanding?
Yes.
Okay, so that means since that is needed for the UPF testing, so that will be taken care of by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Was there a
All
PR
right.
already open for that change? I'm sorry, there were too many last Friday. I was off.
Yeah. He mentions that pull request.
There was an issue, and it's already the number 30 in test infra.
Oh, it's still in a review state, so we can go take a look.
It's merged.
It is merged.
Oh, okay.
All right. For the code scanning and checking, I've moved the Go tests image from Alpine based image to Debian based. It's official Golang image, by the way, but it turns out that the controller gen I needed for I believe, well, I don't remember now. So one of the make files was dependent on it. So it turns out the controller gen itself depends, I guess, on a glibc or something. So and the Alpine is Musil based, so had to be migrated. So now we have a bash by default, so it also will rule out any so to speak problems that we previously had with this missing in Alpine box, and sometimes it's kind of like a hard-coded dependency in some scripts or something. So we're good on that. There are two other tools. I don't know if they're gonna be actively used in FEO project, but they are just part of this same repository. So I've just added them to the image anyway. For artifact builds, 35GC repo now builds Docker image every commit, and it's getting pushed to the Docker Hub account, and this one that's built every commit, the tag, so to speak, version of it will be prow build ID number. So then you can backtrack like from which revision it was built or something. And for release, every time you create a release, so in fact, it's just creating a tag. When it started with lowercase v and then like three numbers, like it's general, I guess, consensus to make versioning like this. It will create an image tagged with this particular version and also push it to the Docker Hub. And in the meantime, we had the Docker Hub account migration from just normal plain personal account to organization. What that causes, and it also applies to GitHub. If you create like a GitHub account and then migrate it to organization, the account that you created it with is no longer used to log into this organization. So you have to dedicate a different account to be kind of like a manager for it. So the same thing applies to Docker Hub. So our previous account, Nefio, that was used for basically any image manipulation there, has been repurposed to be this organization account. So I've created, with help of Lucy, I've created a new account that will serve as a bot account, so to speak, to push the images to from our infrastructure to Docker Hub. And for miscellaneous label sync.
So sorry, Rado. So on that one, so at this point of time, so can we assume that the OSS account in the Docker Hub is kind of enabled for all our purposes, kind of in terms of rate limiting and stuff? With
yes,
this?
yes, that's what. Well, I haven't really tested if it doesn't have a rate limiting, but I'm sure it doesn't. So Lucy got the confirmation that it had been converted to the OSS organization account. So we're good on this in this matter.
Okay, thank you. And the other one, so the credentials for all these things, the secret, they are all stored in this pro job, or how is it managed?
The secrets are being kept as a Kubernetes secret, and it's being mounted every time the job uses it. So it's being mounted in a pod as a file from which Docker just gets its credentials, or any software that is used to manipulate the Docker Hub or the images.
Yeah, I mean, where exactly it is stored? That file, the secret. Is it in GitHub, or I just wanted to understand that?
No, the secret lives only in Kubernetes secret. So
okay, it is not in the it's not exposed at all. Okay, good.
It is not. And Prow also has a function in a job to double check if you're not exposing anything that's password or token like. So you can add additional layer of protection, but it's not exposed like in the logs or something. So it's just a use as a token for, in this case, Kaneko, to produce image and upload it to Docker Hub.
Okay, cool, awesome.
All right, and so for miscellaneous stuff, the label sync, which wasn't really a priority issue, I guess, it's in the works, so the image is ready, and I'm creating the label set file. So from now, every repository that has a certain set of labels, it will all be managed through the pull request to our Prow infrastructure. So if you want to, for example, add any new label, to the repository, it can be done like this, and it will be like a kind of like a cron job going every, I guess, maybe 2 hours or something to synchronize those. So what it gives us, first of all, it will be easier to manage those labels between the projects. And of course, the labels that are already provided by GitHub, this will stay. It will not be a scope of it. But if you want to add like a new label, let's say aria / something and so on, it can be done after this is enabled from just a pull request to our infrastructure repository. And it is needed for the next thing I'm gonna talk about. So this squashing thing. So all core repositories now have a squash as a merge method enabled by default, but this also can be configurable during in pull request, so to speak, by adding labels. So if you want to have it merged by any remaining 2 methods, you will just add a label, and for this you have to have these labels enabled on repository, and just not to do it manually, it will be done through label sync. Yeah, and one other thing, by design, the default behavior for Prow is if one of the owners of a repository creates a PR, it will automatically approve it, assuming that if it's owner, it's one of the people that has the power, so to speak, to approve it. Yeah, now turns out it's not a wanted behavior in our case, so it has been turned off on all repositories. And yeah, that's about it. I have for this meeting. There are probably some tasks that will have to be carried over to next sprint, but I'm hoping to finish them in like next 2 or 3 days. So yeah, that's about it from my side.
Awesome, Redas. Great update. Thanks for working on all this one. Really appreciate. I know some of this came at the last moment, such as the squashing and other things. I updated all the Git repos to have the PR title and the description to have the default message for the squash. I did that. So I think between these two, I think we are covered with the squashing. I really appreciate it. I have one. So on the label sync stuff, let's say we create a few labels we have multiple repos, right? So let's say on the main repo, I go and create 3 or 4 labels using GitHub UI, right? So this label sync, what exactly it does? Does it propagate all labels to all the repos? Is that what it does?
It is configurable per repository.
Okay.
So you can have, for example, you will have a different areas for API and different areas for Nephew or for packages or something like this. So it's configurable per repository, and also the upside of it, I mean, you can change the colors and all this stuff, without just clicking through the GitHub tabs. It's a secondary benefit, but first of all, based on the labels, you can kind of alter the Prow behavior. One of the example is this merging method, but there are more that you can do. And if this label is not present in the repository, it will just return the error. So it will give us some other flexibility options to alter how the PRs are handled and so on.
Awesome, thank you. And coming back to the test environment. So test environment, I believe it creates a VM. Obviously, it creates a VM with the right packages that we need in terms of kernel packages and stuff like that. In addition to that, does it already create clusters or?
Yeah, I mean the current current playbook that we have there, it just installs what we have on one summit.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, it's
demo.
starts a kind cluster, maybe.
Yeah. So that's basically uses the Ansible playbook from one summit repository to spin up, this all-in-one kind of package. And Victor is actually working on a different approach that will be, from what I understood, it will be kind of thing that's gonna be used in CI, and also you can use it in Vagrant on your local machine for some tests. So we will have like a uniform testing environment, regardless of what's the hardware beneath it. So you wouldn't have to do much configuration to do the same test that we have on a CI environment.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Vish. You have your hands raised.
Yeah, two things. Where are the labels are being applied? Are there any labels that are applied today that you're talking about? The label sync image. I'm trying to see if these labels are applied to repo. Is there an example that you can show?
Yeah. So if you go, let's say to your Nefia, go to any pull request, let's say. And you got the labels here, right?
Okay.
So for example, you can kind of tag your PR with, let's say, different areas. So based on those labels, you can then change the behavior of PRAO. So for example, it can, let's say for docs, the PR can be up for like a week or something before it gets marked as a stale or removed or whatever, and for other repos it's like 3 days or something, depends on or other areas, sorry, not repos. So all these labels here, besides the default that were on a GitHub, those were added manually by John, I believe. And it's just also, if you want to do this on like a 50 repos and have the same color or something, it's just it's tiresome. And also labels like this, so like I don't know, merge hold or whatever, LGTM. So those were added by PRAO automatically. But you can change like a coloring for them to make like a LGTM like a bright. Bright green, like the color of hope or something. This is all good for testing and so on. The one fix will be like red or something. That's just an additional thing, but also adds a nice look. But the first thing is like we'll have the uniform way of adding these labels to all our repositories, and based on those labels, we can then alter how the PRAO interacts with this PR.
Okay, cool. Another thing I know you mentioned about Vagrant, and it's at this point of time it is Ubuntu. At some point of time, I think we also probably need another distribution as well, like Fedora as well coming in. So maybe that's something we should.
I mean with what Victor's doing, it will be really the distribution agnostic.
He showed us the Vagrant. It is currently Ubuntu, basically. But yeah, if it is distribution agnostic, that's good. Because if we are going to be reusing that, right, some folks would want to use Ubuntu, some would want to use Fedora. So yeah, okay, cool. If you think that Victor is doing that. But at least the early last week, whatever he showed us, it was actually more of Ubuntu. So
but that's just what his like, I guess what's his flow to work on it. Okay, from what I understood, the solution he's proposing will be based on just using Kubernetes API. So for this it will be really a matter if you can run Kubernetes on this distribution, it will be, it will be good to go. So whatever it is, it's Ubuntu, Fedora, Gentoo, like whatever you want to, it will just use the Kubernetes API. That's at least from my impression from last meeting.
Okay, and also okay, cool. I think that is where I think for some of the Ansible scripts that installs the prereq might still be useful to use, or if we are going to retire that repository, it might still be good to bring it into the test infra. Whatever we need for installing stuff, it can be OS agnostic. So for example, right now, whatever kernel module I think you're loading, I think you're assuming it is actually Ubuntu, and it is trying to do apt install, which is only specific to Ubuntu. Maybe over a period of time, we need to recognize that it needs to be agnostic. And the reason I bring that up is it shouldn't so happen that, hey, the pro job works fine. Hey, I tried this on my Fedora, I tried this on Gentoo, it doesn't work. Oh yeah, but it's because we're only doing CI on one thing. So just bring it up, right? It doesn't have to be addressed right away, but we need to keep that in mind.
This step, this step is very important. That's a good point here. I guess it's a action point to take after we have a Victor's solution in place. So then we can gather what kind of requirements we have, and I'm all in favor of using Ansible or whatever solution that will we just don't use kind of like I don't know, like a bash script or something that has like a apt install or something, something in this manner. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, thank you.
So okay, cool. Are you done? Okay, cool. So
actually, no, I have some questions. So what does it do today in terms of so you're now spinning up the ONE Summit testbed for all the for every single check-ins, I guess. So what are the test cases? Is there any integration tests out of this?
I think what Rado has got is as part of his pro job. I mean, I know Rado can speak to himself, but what we had discussed was bring up as a first step to make sure that whatever we had in the for the workshop, the post workshop, basically where we bring up 4 kind clusters, using Ansible scripts, we wanted that. And as of last week, when I was discussing, when myself, Ravi, and Victor were discussing, we wanted even to a level where it's only the management cluster without the Nefio components needs to be brought up. So that is what we are targeting as the next goal. But there are no tests at this point of time today to invoke as end-to-end. But we have some ideas on what we can do. What we are thinking as a base test, at least, is we should be able to, from Pro, bring up a base VM, right? With which will be the foundation for the management cluster. We will actually go and make sure that there are no Nefio components installed. And then we are actually going to use the KPT or the Porch to pull the Nefio system components and the web UI components, packages, install it, and make sure all the pods are running, which are specific to Nefio management cluster as a base test case. Okay. That will be the base test case
just to ensure that nothing would suddenly break the pods from coming up, I guess.
Yeah, that is a base test case we thought as a starting point, and then we can start building on top of that. And my comment last week was, hey, there has to be certain tests that needs to be run from an end-to-end test perspective to make sure a PR is not breaking. I mean, I know the motivation for periodic, right? But later it will be like, hey, which PR actually, when we actually become more busy in some of these PRs, it will be very hard to figure out which PR broke the, end-to-end tests. It'll be easy.
Well, I mean, there's also a trade-off of obviously scaling up, because if you have a lot of integration tests, that would take some time to run.
No, it might be that some integration tests will be, I'm thinking it will be categorized. So this integration doesn't need tests to be, can be run periodically. And this integration test actually is coming from this repo. And this repo makes changes that can actually, for which we need to make sure the management cluster comes up properly. And this change actually introduces something to a workload cluster. We need to ensure that this actually brings up those parts properly, for like next 15 minutes. So it's a combination of those, like a phase one,
Is
phase
that
two kind of.
so? So for routers, is that something configurable by Prowl?
Yes, you can. I mean,
Some sort of tag. If you tag
it
a
makes,
API.
yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Or you can just create like a file that says like a end-to-end.txt, and every time you alter it, this job will start, because it makes really no sense to run it every commit.
Yeah,
For example, you have some, like a, the type of fix or whatever, quick fix commit. There's no reason to actually to run the VM. It costs, of course. The additional thing is like it also costs money, right? So it's not much. The machine we're using right now costs around $200 per month if it's running like 24/7. So it's not a lot, but still to be mindful of this.
Just to clarify, Raghu, there is two things. Today, for every commit, I think we are running the unit tests and circle CI tests and all the stuff.
Yep.
What I am proposing is on every merge, before you merge, because once we get approve from the reviewers and saying it is ready to merge, before the merge happens, certain tests, end-to-end tests have to be run. And for those, we need to create the VM. So because a PR can stay there for like 3-4 days with multiple commits coming in, we are not running those end-to-end tests on those. I'm saying as part of every merge, we need to run them. Some of them, a subset.
Yeah, you can in Prowl configuration, you can specify that the job is not to be run automatically, and then it can be triggered manually in a PR by a / command if you want to run it like multiple times and not have it run automatically. That's also an option.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a that's a good thing. I mean, if we can categorize, like Vish said, then we can control it via labels. I mean, based on label, you run this.
Or use labels. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
And well, the second thing is, I think a couple of weeks ago, I was asking for whether or not we'll be creating this kind clusters with a potentially load balancer, so we can get IP address off of that load balancer. So I don't know who's working on that, but I just wonder.
I think you shared that with me, and then
yeah, I did. I sent it
the
to
metal
you.
thing.
I don't know who's taking over it, but
and if you remember,
I mean,
yeah, but by the time we bring up SMF, then we'll probably need that.
Yeah, and if you remember,
so is there an issue? If not, I would like to create one.
It's a good idea.
No issue, probably Vish or Stephen, if you give me the details, I will create one.
Okay.
So I think if you remember, Stephen, about 2 weeks back, I had actually brought up kind cluster using kubadmin on a VM instead of kind clusters. And then I also mentioned to you that the IP address, there is actually for the VM, every single VM, there is actually a certain IP address provided, external IP. And also I was able to figure out that if the pro jobs are also running within the same account, the 10.x, which is the private IP, is also accessible by each of those VMs, basically. I was able to test that out.
Yeah, so for VM, it works that way. But then if we eventually have a client cluster based auto testbed, if you will, then because I don't know right now, I guess it's still pretty iffy whether or not we would like to validate that the VM based platform, the VM per node based platform would work, because that would be probably more like a real setup. But then I guess we'll be most likely using kind, even for some level of integration test, until that thing is becoming fully available. And then we know how to plumb. We know how to do plumbing off of that VM based thing. So just want to make sure that that has the infra that needed for all the network functions to come up.
So how do you phrase it, Stephens? Load balancer for
so
network functions?
Let me I'll send you a link and all that stuff. So I mean, let's write about this a little later.
And
I'll
I think
send
there's
you the
already
information.
an issue for end-to-end test bed requirements.
right? Okay.
If you can update that, that will be better.
Yeah, that's one part on creating metal LBs with kind. So you'll be so the workload running on kind would be able to just use
Yeah.
load balancer as a
I
mechanism
think
for their
there
service.
were multiple things, right? You mentioned, I think, this, and then somebody mentioned ingress. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, that's right.
I think
That was-
yeah, I think Tao did. I need to
Yeah.
explore that because it seems like Tao metal LB would work, and that probably would be the easiest thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will.
Yeah.
I will
So there's it still needs container lab. I don't know if I don't think Vim is doing that. Someone else is taking over that. Is it
Victor.
Victor, right? So
Yeah.
so someone would still have to allocate IP address pool for the load balancer. And then but then metal LBs, it's going to allocate an IP address when you instantiate it out of that pool. And then it will bind it into a service. But then metal LB would have to know how to route it when it goes from one cluster to another. So there's some plumbing things that needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. So I can send you details, I guess, after this.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. I have a couple of things. So, Rado, I think you said for the Docker image publishing, it's free 5GC is done. So probably we need to do the same thing in the Nephio repo as well, mainly for the controllers. I think probably all the controllers, NF deployment, and all the gRPC. I think everything will be included in a single binary, I believe. That's in the controller manager that is worked by Sandeep. But there are all these different network functions too. So basically, we need to. I want first a question. The statement is we need to push those images as well as we build into the into Docker. So is that also done, or is it something to be done?
I mean, for free 5GC repo, it's already done because there was a Docker file that builds the image. For other repos, there is none. And I was just wondering how, if there was like any other method to build it used for the One Summit demo and so on. So,
yeah, I think I created an issue actually for that one. It's for build pipeline, end-to-end build pipeline. So probably we can discuss Rado, if you are available in maybe tomorrow's or SIG automation meetings tomorrow or day after, if we could.
I'll join. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then probably we should discuss that. I think we should enable that in those repos as well.
Because I can, enabling it's just a copy paste and just changing the repo name. It's 30 seconds of work. Really, I wasn't sure how it's gonna be built and where it's supposed to go and what kind of image it's supposed to use, because that's not specified, I guess. Yeah. So I'm just
functions. I think. Yeah, I think it has. Vim may be already building one. I'm not sure. He may be pushing it to his local account. But probably we'll figure it out. I think probably let's close the loop on that one later tomorrow. If you don't know, we really appreciate it. That means at which point of time we'll cover. That means all the images, buildings. I think we may need to cover it in some other repos too as well. Like Stephen is doing it in the edge watcher on the client side. Sorry, on the workloads cluster side. I don't know. I think we need to push that as well. So we need to do this in a couple of maybe 2 or 3 repos, I believe, to
sure
consistently achieve the same result.
Yeah, from my side, everything is ready. It's just a matter of enabling it for these repos, but the way it currently works, they have to contain a Docker file to build this image. So if it's something that already somebody has in a private repo, or just uses it for their own development, it's probably a good idea to push it to those repos, and it can be plugged. We can discuss it on on a meeting tomorrow,
Cool.
on
Yeah.
automation meeting.
Thank you. Well, let's close the loop on that. And I wanted to discuss this mainly Stephen. Stephen, this is essentially the fourth sprint, which is the last sprint, and after which we have
We should do all integration.
yeah, we have only 1 week, of which maybe it's just a long weekend too. I don't know. So I have a feeling that
This upcoming, you mean this couple? The upcoming sprint is the last sprint, last
Yes,
development sprint. Okay.
yeah, but the thing is that's only no, that is a release sprint actually. This is the last
Okay.
development sprint. We have the
So the sprint that ends today is the last sprint. You mean?
today
Today ends the third sprint, right?
today is the third sprint. The
Okay.
sprint starts from tomorrow is the last sprint,
Okay.
and then after that we will have 2 weeks there, and after that
Mhm.
we will have the fifth sprint, which is shortened sprint, like 5 days.
Okay.
That is the release sprint. That's where we need to do all the
Yeah.
documentation, end-to-end testing, and
I do recommend for a lot of people. I mean, for myself at least, me and Arwen are committed to doing some integrations between the NF topology and the ESA, the edge status aggregator. So we'll target to do that at the end of this week. That's what I would encourage other people to do, and we should talk about that on more like SIG 2 meeting. That this is Kubernetes, so integration could be done by pieces. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be fully end to end. And then there are things that should be ready. For example, UPF has been ready for a while, so I would like to see that integrate with some of the specialization stuff at the end of this.
Yeah.
I encourage this sprint, even during this sprint, we should have some level of integration testing
yes,
on components, not end to end. It will not be end to end. I mean, the really long pole is the porch pieces. We actually don't know where they are actually at this
yeah.
point.
I think John said he's gonna give us some image built for the changes. I think he said he's making good progress there.
Okay.
So my original thing is, I think we are lining very close. My question to you was, if it were a general project, I would have asked, like we should extend the deadline by at least a week. So I wanted to
So obviously it's not. I in here I can't say that for sure. But
Yeah.
then I was told by
It's on
Condon.
LinkedIn. It's
Yeah,
Jan.
I was told by Condon that we do have about 2 weeks of wiggle room.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it is. We do expect that, we don't expect things to like all done by 5:30 first. that would be unlikely.
Okay, that's where I
Yeah,
was
so
going to.
there's some wiggle rooms. I mean, we don't want to make it like a big announcement to the whole community by saying that, hey, you have another 2-3 weeks to play around, so yeah, forget it.
Yeah.
There's no rush. Yeah,
Okay.
so
I
we don't
think
want
there
to
was
send the
news
wrong
on
message.
The Nefio
Yes.
channel. Actually, on the LinkedIn Nefio, you see it's expected in June. So that was a smart one.
Yeah, well, so the message we had internally is let's aim for 31st still.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then if it by any great chance that it actually happened, it would be great. And then those 2 weeks could be used for marketing and some other stuff and further testing. If not, then at least it becomes some room for us to kind
And
of
for a
wiggle.
party.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Stephen, I do expect, the way I'm thinking is, my mind is, this week, I think this sprint will make a lot of progress in terms of the
Yeah.
tightening
I
up a lot of
expect
pieces, like different pieces going on in all the 3-4 groups.
Mhm.
And then we'll start with integration, like you said, but to finish the integration test, finish all the documentation, and finish all the bugs, we need at least one sprint at least. That's why I said probably we will need
Yeah.
at least first week of June.
Yeah, I mean, it's more like 1 week is the last sprint, but then it's basically more like probably it's a sprint that starts at that point where we will be full into all integrations, and then it will carry until we end it.
Yes,
Basically.
exactly. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I mean,
Cool. I
it's
think
not like
that
forever, but
makes me
then
feel
at
better.
least you can kind of see that as like a 1 week sprint that can easily become like a 3 week sprint.
Yeah,
to get
Yeah,
everything done.
at least 2 weeks. Yeah.
So
At least
we can, so that was, we were told that a while back. We just didn't think it was a good thing to announce.
Yeah.
or
Okay.
anything.
I got it.
Yeah.
I was thinking,
Uh-huh.
so the reason I was telling this, if at all those, if at all you needed to do some internal conversation, things like that, I just wanted to highlight the risk.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to cut
Got it.
feature wise, unfortunately. I mean, at this point, I'm not even sure the 5G
it
call
is-
would be likely. We'll see how that goes. Because there's still a lot of risk in the free 5GC configuration piece. I think there's still some missing things probably in terms of whether or not we'll be able to create a full configuration, particularly for SMF. Actually, I think more than anything else. So we'll thrive to do that. I think there've been 1 or 2 change of the NF deployment object already, just to try to accommodate this. But I'm still kind of skeptical that we'll be able to generate that, because last week I talked to An and Varesh, and then right now progress-wise, I told them to just put the N4 in, put the PFCP IP address, just to get the flow going first. But then in terms of plumbing and things, it's probably have to spend quite a bit of time to make sure that this actually works. But then the good thing is the rest of the packages are going to be checked in, I guess, in from Orange. So at least
it's actually they are checked in. We are reviewing that. Yeah.
they have checked in already, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
so we know for those guys. So the one big difference between what they did and what we will be doing is that at least between AMF and SMF, they'll be running on different clusters. So the whole service thing that I talked about earlier, it matters. Obviously, at the when the day gets closer, whether or not we just shove SMF into the same cluster also, that's
Yeah,
something we can.
it's okay, right? To me,
Yeah.
it's okay. All the control components, control plane components could be run in one cluster, and UPF
Yeah.
could be running on the other cluster.
Yeah, I mean, we can do that, and in which case the connectivity between the service IPs would be just taken care of by CNI. So we don't have to we don't have to do anything special. And they get away with it that way. But then a long time ago, we said that the AMF plus all the other stuff runs onto the so-called cloud cluster, and then there's a regional or aggregation cluster. I think there's a regional cluster, aggregation cluster. Aggregation cluster is where the SMF runs. UPF, SMF UPF and the rest of them would definitely run on different clusters, which is fine because that's just PFCP. But then, yeah, the other ones are using the SBI, the service bus, and we rightfully decided to use the Kubernetes interface to do this. So now the plumbing is not fully supported yet, because what Vim did is only up to connecting the secondary interfaces with a fixed static IP address. We have to do something different if we have to discover Kubernetes. Anyway, that's one part. That's one part. Yeah. So maybe there's something we kind of like, compromise and push into something a simpler topology for now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think probably that's a good thing. Probably you can start with the simple.
Yeah.
By the way, I wanted to tell you that if at all you already didn't know, they have their CLA cleared. Piotr is, I think we can take his help too in terms of configuration debugging testing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if they're available to help, that would be great.
Yes. Yeah. I think they said they are. Yeah.
Okay, that would be great.
So, a question in general on CLAB. So, does it work only with kind clusters, or does it also work across VMs, across clusters?
Which one? What are you talking about? Sorry.
Container Dev Lab. Yeah.
No, yeah. So that was built specifically to be a module sitting below the Docker bridge. So at this point, it was specifically, as far as I know, it's specifically, so the way Vim has it is to connect different Docker containers. So in our case, the Docker containers, each container is one cluster. Well, one node in a one node cluster, basically. So the connectivity between clusters is supported by Container Lab because of this. Across VMs is a cloud problem. So in your case, it's Google Cloud problem. So you have to kind of figure out how to talk to each other between a VM on Google Cloud and another VM on Google Cloud. Last time you showed me there's an internal IP that could use. How to translate that into something like a Kubernetes service IP and still be able to bind to that port number such that the packet would be delivered to the containers correctly. I think there's probably some work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, see, one
so-
cluster can talk to another cluster if known, given the.
Oh yeah, your VM node will be able to talk to the other VM node.
Yes.
How did that propagate all the way down to sending it to the right cluster is a thing that we have to explore.
Yeah, I mean, which means if we are still using the same terminology as queue
I mean,
management.
the worst thing to do, which no one likes, is you can use no port that translate the IP address that binds to the VM, the node, and send it directly into the service port on the
No,
container.
if one cluster,
which is a hack by itself, but it does work.
yeah,
probably.
No, let me ask you this question: if I had the kube config on for one cluster,
Mhm.
The other cluster can use the kube config to talk to the other cluster. Isn't that good enough?
No, so cluster and cluster communications are through a different thing. So they need to have some so they expose an IP address from one side, which is a service IP. That is a routable IP.
Which is a
outside of its
6443
yeah.
in the case of API server.
Yeah, no, so it's a routable IP outside of the cluster. So this is not an IP address managed by Kubernetes. It's an IP address managed by the thing that hosts Kubernetes, which is in this case your cloud provider. And then that IP address exposed to the other guy will use that to hit the service. So to go from one, as you said, going from one VM to another VM is simple. Going from one VM to another VM where that VM would still route the traffic to the with ports, or actually the kube proxy in this case, or actually the load balancer in this case, or ingress, and route it to the right guy. There has to be some plumbing that needs to be done. But
Okay,
it shouldn't be too bad. It shouldn't be too bad. This is a problem that Kubernetes solved even the first time I looked at Kubernetes back in, I don't know, 2015-ish. So because I've done that even back then. So it's not I think no port is the way I use it. I was running VMs on my own laptop at the time. So it's not undoable, but it's and then your VM based testbed is not an automated testbed anyway, right? So you probably use it more for manually set up to validate that this thing still works on
actually,
non-kind cluster.
I am able to bring up a VM. See, the way to bring up a VM is already there by Radu and earlier by Java, right? And then I already have a script to actually bring up a kube admin cluster, right? So that's also there, and Radu has got a microkit as also as well. Those things are there. So which service? What I'm trying to understand, maybe maybe I'm naive here.
Yeah,
talking about some services being exposed as part on that cluster. Like if I were to go off and do a kubectl get service minus a on the different namespaces, which do you know which of the services needs to be the one that needs to be exposed more as
so all the things
balancer?
that here, let me give you the, let me see it. Yeah, I mean, I have the manifest checked in, so you will be able to, well, actually, unfortunately, not check into to the Nephew repo because I haven't merged yet. So I have it on my own repo at this point, and
Okay.
so if you check out the,
do you mind sharing this on the slide?
I'm going to, because I still go, I have to go search for the.
Okay, whenever it doesn't have to be right away. See, it's a question. I want that. That will actually help understand. For me, if I'm actually doing further investigations in GCP, I mean, because one, I was able to at least talk to the API servers of each other, because there is certain service accounts that needs to get created, and it needs to be made the cluster at cluster level. You can actually create a service account, and if that actually
here, that's one of the servers that needs to be exposed by SMF.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we apply this manifest, or when the operator pushes this service onto the Kubernetes API server, the workload cluster will have a service entry that name SMF-NSMF, and then this would have a IP address bind to it, or not. If it doesn't work, it doesn't. But then there's the service name would be there, and then the type, the 185 type would be load balancer on the kind cluster case that we created. So they would be creating the load balancers would then allocate their IP address to it, and the load balancer would know when you visit this this service, it would be mapped to the pod in the backend.
Okay. I mean, I played with Ingress a while back. Okay, that was a long time back when I took.
Yeah.
That was like. It seems like I'm
Yeah,
also
we
trying
don't.
to-
We talked about it because I think Vim earlier said that, oh, let's hack everything and make everything secondary interface. Yeah, I don't think anyone likes that per se because
No, hack. When you use the word hack and a solution, it doesn't seem to go well, right? Well,
it's not. It usually isn't. It's not. It's not meant to be.
yeah.
It's not meant to be a secondary interface.
Yeah, I think it's the idea is also to figure out any gaps too along the way and actually.
It's quite a bit of things actually. Even beyond the plumbing, it's the fact that the configurations needs to contain the IP address also of the service. So the operator would probably have to discover that, which is a very interesting thing to think about by the end. But anyway, so at this point, it's probably okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
That's done.
Anything else from anyone? If not, then we get 5 minutes back. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Never happens. Thank you.
I know.
I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Cool. Thanks, Rado. Thanks, Stephen. Really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
That's,
Have a nice rest of the day.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I guess I'll see most of you guys on the SIG 2 meeting on Wednesday then.
Yeah, see you then.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Rado. Okay, bye.